Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it's your first time. My name is Trini, this is my cat Gracie, and the last video I did, I was talking about my anxiety journey, how I found out I had it, and then I got into where I started taking Benzos. So I wanted to start off with where I left off in the last video. It was 2021, and we can get right to that. And if you are seeing this video, go back to the video that says part 1 if you would like to get the backstory on this video. So as I was saying in the last video, is in 2021 there was major changes in my life. I was just coming out of a 7-month tolerance withdrawal, which I do know that's now what it was for a fact. And my doctor they said, moved on to retired or something like that, but I think that he got fired. And there was going to be a new doctor. And I had a Zoom appointment with her because it was still kind of in COVID times a little bit still, so doing the Zoom. And the first thing she said to me was, "You're on too many Benzos, we're going to taper you off." And that actually was a relief for me. I had wanted to do that for years, and anytime that I would bring it up to my other doctor, he would be like, "No, you don't need to. You need to be on it for the rest of your life. We just, need to increase the dose as needed and everything will be fine." So that's the way that it was. And I kind of just gave up on the fact that I was ever going to be able to taper. And then this new doctor comes in and she is completely going to change my life. So I'm having this conversation with her, and I was scared like anybody else would be. I'm like, is she going to do it super fast? I immediately started crying, and I just told her I don't want to be in a lot of pain when I go through this and all that different stuff. And she was like, we can go at a decent pace, but you really do need to be off of it, which I agreed. And so I started my taper. Now here's the part where it gets interesting, at least for me and for anybody else that I've talked to. So I was on 5.5 milligrams of Klonopin per day for me to take for an anxiety disorder. And when I tell you that that was a massive dose, if you don't know, it's a massive dose. I don't know how I functioned, honestly. So to get started on that was a really big thing. So that's just a little bit of how the taper started. Now I wanted to go back to some of my popular asked questions from people in my life and friends and all of that. So when I left off before, like I said, I was getting into that. So what made me realize I was intolerant, what made me even Google that or anything else. And it was just something wasn't making sense to me, and it wasn't right. And it just wasn't sitting well with me. Like, I'm not an agoraphobic. I'm not any of these things that I'm feeling that I am. It's like I'm constantly 24/7 anxiety, and that doesn't normally happen for me or to me ever. And I was going through that like different times, like years apart from each other, and then like 6 months to a year, and I just snap out of it, and I didn't understand it, and it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So deep diving into like benzo buddies and on YouTube looking for people, I came across a few people that were tapering, and I spoke with them, emailed them, and all sorts of stuff like that. And I had a really close friendship with a few people off of YouTube as I was planning to taper behind my other doctor's back, because I was sick and tired of feeling like this, and I felt like I wasn't being heard. So initially, when my new doctor told me I was going to taper, I was scared, terrified that she wouldn't be sympathetic to how long I've been on it and how big of a dose. So that was pretty scary. And another question I always get is, what symptoms made you want to taper? And I think I named those off. Agoraphobia is the big one. Not being able to eat any food and just constantly can't sleep and can't get comfortable, crying, just on and on and on. And all of those things, the depression, the really bad thoughts that I would get and stuff like that. I just had enough. So when I decided to taper, it wasn't really a decision as much as it was kind of, she was forcing me, which was actually it was a beautiful thing, because it was something that I wanted. It was something that I needed to do, and someone was kind of giving me a little shove. And then I did go over what dose I took, because that's a big question that people have asked me, is like, how many milligrams of Klonopin do you take a day? Especially when you go to the emergency room, you see your doctor and whatever. And some of the looks that I would get were absolutely crazy, to say the least. So my doctor and I wrote out a taper plan, and I was dropping down a 0.5 milligram every month or so. And I made it all the way down to 1.25 milligrams in about a year and a half, I think, something like that. I can't quite remember. And it started to get really, really hard. And I told her I wanted to like take a pause. I needed a break. It was just constant taper month after month after month. And I was like, my brain just needs a break. And she said, we can take time. So honestly, that was the worst conversation I could have had with that woman, because if I would have known what I said to her in July of 2023 was going to come back and bite me in May of 2024, I never would have sat there and had that conversation. So I paused, and I didn't forget. I just was like, well, maybe I can just stay at this dose for the rest of my life at 1.25. So I started having these little mini panic attacks, and they were started around February of 2023. And I was like, oh, I'm just in like some kind of withdrawal. I didn't think tolerance. I honestly didn't at first think tolerance. I was like, maybe my body's just, I put it through hell for a year and a half, almost 2 years, and my body was just freaking out. that's the way that I thought, and I thought wrong for a while. And by June, I couldn't leave the house, and I got worse and worse and worse. And before that, I was going to the gym. I was hanging out with my friends, hanging out with my grandchildren, hanging out with everyone, doing things and just having a good time, going shopping and all of that stuff. So when that hit, it was the lowest I've felt in my entire life. And I have been through that a million different times. And which it felt like a million times. But the realization that I was in tolerance withdrawal again was very, very difficult. And I was mad at myself. And I couldn't stop it. And there was nothing I could do. And I tried to reinstate, more of the med to see if it would help. And it didn't. And I was like, there's no way I can taper right now because I'm just in so much pain. And when I mean pain, I mean mentally, physically, emotional. I felt like I was dying, and my anxiety would start from the time I got up until the time I went to bed. That put a damper on my relationship with my grandchildren, my children, my boyfriend. It completely ruined me. And I felt defeated and very sad. But it did take a toll on me. And I was talking with my father, and in July I decided to take him out of the nursing home and try to take care of him here, even though I was completely mentally unstable. On a daily basis, I was trying to get some sort of help, and I didn't know what kind of help to get. I couldn't leave the house because I would just go into an extreme panic where I couldn't breathe, and my heart was racing. And when I say my heart was racing, it would go up to like the 170s, 180s solid. So I thought I was dying daily. My dad came up here and he stayed here for one weekend, but that wasn't all due to my mental state. It was his physical state as well. So unfortunately, he had to go back to the nursing home. And eventually that year he went on hospice, was sick, and he passed last November of 2024. And when he was sick, I did not go down to see him. I didn't watch him die because that was my decision to make. And a lot of people were like, well, you'll regret it. And even in my mental state I was in, regardless if I would have felt better or not, I still wouldn't have, because my dad and I had many years of him and I living together and me taking care of him, that I knew what he wanted and what he didn't, and I didn't need to see my dad slowly dying. So fast forward to, I started feeling a little better around May, and then went into June a little bit, and then July I went to a barbecue that was hosted by where I go for my mental health care, and that was super fun, and I hadn't had fun in a long time. And from there it just kind of got slowly better. My GABA probably regulated itself somehow, and that's where the part I don't get with tolerance. And I made a decision when I felt better that I'm going to finish this taper. Sorry for cutting the video so short. I realized when I started editing that this one was a little bit long, so I'm gonna end it here, and then with part 3, it's going to kind of cut right into the beginning of the story, which I apologize for that too. But if you want to see part 3, I'm going to have that one out tomorrow. I'm going to upload part 2 today, and I hope that you guys watch part 1. And with that, I will see you next time, and like, subscribe, and have a good day. Bye-bye.